Shane Beamer, to me, is one of the most underrated head coaches in college football, and he's overachieved his first 2 years at South Carolina. Went 7-6 in 2021, 2022, had a crazy back-to-back stretch of upsets against Tennessee and Clemson when they were both ranked in the top 10. But in 2023, though, the magic kind of wore off a little bit. They came back down to earth. They were 5-7, which leads me to want to discuss, has Shane Beamer's magic run out at South Carolina? Because they got a very difficult schedule this year. Outside of the easy wins that you're going to have against Old Dominion, Akron, Vanderbilt, and Wofford late in the year, it's really tough sledding for the Beamer boys going into 2024, man. I mean, you got some really tough road games against Alabama and Oklahoma back-to-back. Then you got Clemson. And then you got tough home games against LSU, Ole Miss, Texas A&M. And South Carolina is always a team that gets doubted because when you look at their team on paper, they don't look as talented as teams like LSU and Alabama. But with how good of a coach Shane Beamer is, he's been able to find ways to pull off upsets and win games that he's had no business being able to win. And that's why you can never count out the Beamer boys. And I think that South Carolina is going to be in for a bounce back season this season because their defense is going to be really good. They returned 7 starters on that side of the football. They got a lot of production coming back, but they got a lot of depth. And from what this coaching staff has been saying about the defensive line and the linebacker unit, this could be one of the best seasons that we've seen out of South Carolina defensively in a very long time. You got TJ Sanders returning, who is their best defensive lineman. He's going to be playing D tackle this year. He led the team in tackles for loss and sacks. You got middle linebacker Debo Williams coming back. He was a first team all SEC selection. He had 113 tackles last year. And you got some really big time transfers out of the portal, such as Kyle Kennard from Georgia Tech. This was one of the more highly sought-after pass rushers out of the portal. He had 11 tackles for loss, 6 sacks last season for GT. Hell, he had one game against Wake Forest when he had 4 sacks in that single matchup alone. And then you get Demetrius Knight Jr., who was a top 100 player in the portal, 7th-ranked linebacker. He was an all-AAC selection by the coaches. So you got a lot of depth at linebacker and on the interior of your defensive line. Now, this secondary doesn't have the same amount of depth as you do on the front 7, but you do return a good amount of experience. You got some pretty good corners. You got a pretty good group of safeties. So overall, you should see a way more improved defense out of the Gamecocks in 2024 than what you've seen in not just last year, but in the last couple of years. This may be the best defense that Shane Beamer has ever had at South Carolina. And offensively, they got some damn freaks on this damn side of the football, man. You got a wide receiver who I saw going viral on X named Nick Harbor, who he could be in for a breakout season this year. And we might end up seeing this dude competing in the Olympics, man. This dude is a damn freak. He has world-class speed, and they're saying that he's faster than Tyreek Hill. Now, I don't know how legitimate those rumors are, but all I know is that there's been a lot of track highlights of this dude just looking like an absolute monster, blowing past everybody at 6'5", 245 pounds. Like, do you not know how scary that is? If you're a defensive back and you see Nick Harbor in the open field after the catch running towards you, I don't know how anybody would want to tackle this freak of nature, man. You're 6'5", 245 pounds, dusting dudes on the track like this. This is scary, man. And he was a 5-star recruit from the 2023 recruiting cycle. So the wide receiving core outside of Nick Harbor, you got Jared Brown, who's a transfer from Coastal Carolina. And South Carolina normally has a guy on their offense who can do a bunch of different things. Not just catch the ball, but he also can run the ball as well. And you look at Jared Brown, he's one of those guys. You know, he had over 1,000 all-purpose yards at Coastal, 58 catches, 740 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns, and also chipped in doing some work in the ground game. Plus, you got Rocket Sanders, who is one of the best running backs in college football, who we kind of forgot about because he's been in Arkansas, and Arkansas pretty much is getting ready to implode this year. So to be able to get Rocket Sanders and Jared Brown in the transfer portal was really huge. But the receiver depth for South Carolina is a tad bit concerning, because if one of these guys goes down, they could be in major trouble. But they got some damn freaks on offense, and that doesn't get me to the biggest part of why I'm optimistic South Carolina can be able to overachieve again, because we all want to know who's going to be the dude replacing Spencer Rattler. And if you're a South Carolina fan, you already know about Lenore Sellers. But if you're not, and you're somebody who's listening to this and you don't really know too much about this Lenore Sellers guy, this fool has some insane upside. He is an in-state recruit. He was a 3-star, so he's not your highly touted 4- and 5-star guy. But if you look at this dude's physical measurements, he's a freak. I mean, he's 6'3", 245 pounds, and allegedly he runs a high 4.4. That's what they're saying. So you got a guy who has freakish size, crazy athleticism, and go back and watch when South Carolina blew out Vanderbilt last year. He had a nice 36-yard touchdown run late in that game when he just absolutely destroyed the Vanderbilt defender. I mean, ran that guy flat the hell over, had his damn helmet in the turf, and he has unlimited arm strength with very nice touch on his deep ball. So I don't think that South Carolina should struggle making the transition from Spencer Rattler to Lenore Sellers. I would be incredibly surprised if Lenore Sellers ends up struggling this year. He had a pretty good spring game going up against a really good defense. And the biggest concern for South Carolina this year has been the biggest concern that I've had with this team for ever since Shane Beamer first took this job. It's the freaking offensive line. For the love of God, are we finally going to get blessed with at least some average, slightly above average offensive line play from these boys this year, man? Because this offensive line, when I was watching Spencer Rattler's film, doing my draft evaluation on him, was just insanely bad. It's like every time Spencer Rattler dropped back, he was running for his life. Like, go back and watch that Georgia game. I was like, bro, they still can't get it right with the offensive line. Now, they had some injuries. All right, and they had to start a lot of young guys, which, you know, at that time could be seen as, you know, not good, but it's beneficial for them in the long run, because they put a couple of true freshmen out there that ended up being really good, who should end up starting this year, and I expect for this to be an improved unit. All right, now I'm still not going to put a lot of stock in this offensive line being good, because at this point, man, like, you just got to see it to believe it with South Carolina's offensive line. It's like every offseason, you want to give them the benefit of a doubt, but then the season comes around and they give you every reason why you never should have gave them the benefit of a doubt. So we just going to have to pray on it to the football gods that they get some decent offensive line play. But I look at South Carolina this year, they got a really talented offense. You got a lot of freaks. Nick Harbor, who should break out this year. He should be a household name. I believe he made Phil Still's Freaks list. And then you got also another freaking Lenore Sellers, who a lot of people are going to look at this dude and they're going to compare him to Anthony Richardson. Now, he's not as freakishly athletic as what Anthony Richardson is. He doesn't have the kind of twitchiness that AR had, but I think he definitely is in a class of his own, because you can have a lot more creativity on offense as a play caller with Lenore's at QB than what you had with Spencer Rattler, because mobility wasn't really a big part of Spencer Rattler's game. It's like he had the ability to pick up yards occasionally from time to time and extend plays, but you weren't going to be calling a lot of design quarterback runs with Spencer Rattler. With Lenore Sellers, you could run quarterback power, zone reads, power reads with this dude, and then you got him in the same backfield with Rocket Sanders. Like, if South Carolina's offensive line ends up improving this year, hopefully, they could have a nice squad this year. The defense is going to be really good. This should be one of the better defenses in the SEC this year. And you can't always judge this team based off the talent they have, you got to somewhat give Shane Beamer a little bit of the benefit of a doubt. All right, and I definitely think that we're going to see him pull off a little bit more of that magic this year, like we saw back in the end of 2022 when they got those two back-to-back top 10 wins against Tennessee, crushing their playoff hopes, and Hendon Hooker's draft stock in the process, and Clemson as well. Because, I mean, I can see you beating LSU. I don't know about their defense. I don't know about Ole Miss defense neither. So you're going up against two teams that have high-powered offenses, but you look like a more well-rounded team than them. And I would say that South Carolina's defense is probably in the top half of the SEC going into this year, at least from a production standpoint and the talent standpoint. You know, their defensive coordinator should be pretty good this year also. So if we can get some decent offensive line play out of the Gamecocks, don't sleep on the Beamer boys this year, because we definitely could see a little bit more of that Beamer magic returning in 2024. Do not sleep on this team. I think that the floor for them is 5 wins. All right, if Lenore Sellers ends up being inconsistent and the offensive line is still terrible, then they probably won't win more than 5 games. But if everything clicks, I think the ceiling is 8-9 wins for them. 9 wins being the high end, because they definitely could be a really good team if this Lenore Sellers guy ends up being as good as he's hyped up to be. Many of the South Carolina fan base is excited to see what he does this season, along with Shane Beamer. Shane Beamer anointed him the starting quarterback right after spring. He didn't take too long to do so, and it didn't seem like it was much of a competition anyway. It seemed like this dude just from out the gate just ran away with the job, and it wasn't really too much of a quarterback competition anyway. So don't sleep on the Beamer boys in 2024. That Beamer magic definitely could end up making a little bit of a return, man. If there's any coach that's good at pulling off upsets, it's Shane Beamer. He's one of the most underrated and most underappreciated head coaches in the sport right now.